What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome in. Another edition here of Mean Streets live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with me as well. Not one, but two Monday night football games happening this evening and at the same time, which is a little bit odd. I think the NFL should have staggered those games just a little bit, but we do have two games to talk about tonight. The Titans entering as massive road dogs in Miami, two touchdown dogs here tonight against the Dolphins, and also the Packers, who are coming in pretty red hot into MetLife to take on the New York Giants. So we got some picks and some props for those two games. We're going to recap some things from last night, take a look at the NFL playoff picture shaping up. We have a new leader inside the NFC as well as the NFC East, and we'll take an early look at Week 15 NFL betting lines. Of course, this is the final go here before fantasy football playoff time. So hopefully you guys got in. Whatever you need tonight, hopefully you do get it. We do have a look of the playoff schedule. We can also dive into some waiver wire stuff, but at this time of the season, I don't believe there's a lot really on the waiver wire. The biggest, I suppose, names, maybe we'll save it for just a little bit and we'll tee up with these football games, but like Noah Brown, most likely going to get an opportunity here. Like he could be hanging around waiver wires, potentially help you out with Nico Collins and Tank Dell out and sidelines. And I'm not sure the extent of Nico Collins' injury. He left yesterday. Justin Jefferson left yesterday. Justin Herbert is probably done now for the season with another loss to the Chargers and a fractured finger. And already Kenny Pickett is ruled out of this Saturday's football game to start. We have 3 Saturday football games as well coming at you. Here's a quick peek of the fantasy football playoff schedule here for you guys. Take a little look. You got some players on some of these teams and go on a little bit of a run. Teams are set now. I do believe teams are set. I think, over the weekend, some last minute pickups in terms of Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Jerick McKinnon, and Helaire got all the touches and most of the touches and the carries, and it was Jerick McKinnon who found the end zone. At this time last season, Jerick McKinnon was a fantasy football league winner. He was scoring touchdowns. I think he had a touchdown, a receiving score in like 6 straight games, and he had 9 in the season, and that carried over into yesterday as well. He found a way to score a touchdown. But I'll just say it one more time. Have these running backs stashed. Go into your fantasy football playoffs with a second quarterback, a second defense, start looking ahead and play some of these matchups. Like we talked about, maybe even the Colts against the Steelers, as you see here, against the Falcons and the Raiders, is maybe a decent defense to play as opposed to Dallas against Buffalo, Miami. I think you probably want to play him against Detroit with Goff turning the ball over again this past weekend. But just something to keep an eye on here. But mostly just have your bases covered. Have these stashes, these running backs, Tajay Spears, even Roschon Johnson did nothing yesterday. Just have some of these running back stashes. I suppose Deontay Foreman's like a guy that's probably hanging around your waiver wire as well. Yesterday, over the week, we talked about avoiding that backfield if you could, just because what we saw, right? It was not Roschon Johnson, who we saw a couple weeks ago when Foreman didn't play. Foreman coming off the bye, picked up a majority of those touches as well. So it's a backfield you probably want to stay clear of, but you want to have some handcuffs. You want to have your handcuffs. With the Chargers, Austin Eckler, they're going to shut him down now. There was some rumblings that we could see other guys, and Spiller get some run here, and Kelly get some run in the later part of the season with the Chargers being done and eliminated. These are things that could happen. I'm not saying that, we're starting them, but who knows, right? You don't want to try to beat your league mates to the waiver wire. You want to try to cover your bases where you can. And it does mean having these next man up type running backs, stashes, Mason and San Fran, anything. Elijah Mitchell's hurt. If anything happened to CMC, we're not hoping for that, but my goodness, right? You would have yourself in that offense, a top running back. Say what up to the crew here, and then we do want to get into some picks and some props. We're going to keep things kind of short. I've lost power already twice. There's a crazy windstorm happening my way. I want to keep these videos short, condense with some picks, but I'm always here to answer some of your questions as well. Deesh is in the house. Means, what do you do about people stashing not hurt guys on IR? One guy watches everyone like a hawk and calls anything out, then had Walker on IR. So what's the deal? Stashing not hurt guys on IR. Yeah. Wouldn't be able to make any moves though, correct? Wouldn't be able to make any moves with the IR. Get into this a little bit in the fantasy hockey and some of my leagues. Some people have guys on IR and they can go ahead. If it's Yahoo, you can go ahead, over the next 3 or 4 days and start taking guys in and out of your lineup, even if they're not hurt IR. Yahoo needs to kind of fix that, but I think I'm okay with it. At this point of the season, if it's just happening, you kind of have to ride this thing out. And then in the off season, you have some sort of, you bring this up with the commissioner or league mates and you have some sort of vote where maybe you can't do that. Yeah, it means kind of cheating the system. I played against somebody this week that had to make some moves, didn't want to make any moves, was already locked into a first round bye and had Kyler and a couple guys on IR and had to get a quarterback. Didn't want to play without a quarterback, right? Wouldn't be fair to the rest of the league. So I had to make a couple tough calls, like dropped Evan Ingram and a couple other players so they could pick up a quarterback. But I would assume that person can't make any moves if they needed to make any moves. So that's the disadvantage. But they are holding extra players. I don't know. I think you need to have a vote, and I would vote like you can't do that. Yeah. Luckily I whooped him, but just annoying having league mates like that. It is annoying. You don't want people cheating the system and things like that. Oh, still lets him make moves. ESPN is funky. I don't agree with that. Then shouldn't be able to make moves. I know Yahoo and other leagues like Sleeper, it locks your roster. You can't make any moves. You can't add anybody until you drop somebody, and then you take them off IR or out and you put them in your starting lineup. Okay, we got Ryan in the house here. Wooldridge, hi bro. Who to pick up for quarterbacks tonight's games? What quarterback should I use fantasy for tonight's games? Is this a DFS type of thing here tonight? If it is, Love and Tua are the two guys that I like here tonight. I think Will Levis is going to struggle. I know that they're 14-point dogs here, but this Miami defense is taking shape. Like Jalen Ramsey, since he's returned, and Xavier Howard, it's been a much better defense. You just look overall at the numbers that they allow, the passing yards that they allow, the fantasy points to certain positions. Like they've been up in a lot of games, and teams are throwing on them, and I get that, and they'll probably have to throw on them here tonight. But Tua, I would say, Love or Tua for sure. Like Miami could certainly run all over them, but Tua and Tyreek, these guys are record-setting chase. They're chasing records. That's what they're doing, I think, at the moment. Like McDaniel says he's not running up the score. I don't believe it. Like what I saw last week against Washington, like 4th and whatever, and a Chan, like give the ball this more. And he has the ability, even if you're trying to run out the clock, to break it. Right? A run or two. We've seen it multiple times. He can break a 30, 35, 40 yard run on like 1 or 2 carries, even if they're trying to run out the clock. It's certainly something that can happen. If you are talking from a DFS angle, overall, I would just rank them probably DeVito 3. I would go Tua and then Love, DeVito, and then Will Levis in there. Okay. I do have some picks and some props to get into here tonight. Nino in the house, only 34.6, but he has Aaron Jones dubs left. How should I be feeling full point PPR? This is it. You're up that. It doesn't sound like Jones is going to play. If Jones doesn't play, he has AJ Dillon. It doesn't sound like Jones is going to play. I was going, I'm in a couple leagues where people have Jones in their lineup over Dillon. And Jones isn't going to play. It doesn't sound like he's going to play. But even if he was playing, I think that AJ Dillon would be the better play. I don't know why. And we've seen Aaron Jones a couple times this season is like a surprise inactive on a Monday Night Football game, and a couple other games where he had returned to action and he was limited, and it just wasn't talked about him being limited, and he was just limited. So that's something that I thought was going to happen regardless. You're up 34, and he's got AJ and he's got Romeo. I think you're good. It's not like AJ hasn't been doing a whole lot, even with those touches. He's getting some carries. I think he's coming off a game where he had 18 carries, right? It was a season high for him, or the most he's had since week 5. 18 for 73. He is catching a few passes out of the backfield. I think you're good. Full point PPR. I don't expect a ton of volume even for Romeo here tonight, but he has scored a few touchdowns, and it is the Giants defense. So it's possible, hopefully that's a lot of points. Hopefully for you, one of those guys, I would say dub scores, and it's possible AJ finds a rushing touchdown as well, but he has had the backfield to himself over the past couple of weeks, and he hasn't scored. He's had one rushing touchdown. It did come week 5. I think you're okay. You're going to sweat that one out, but I think you'll be fine. Lansing JP in the house. Rough weekend. Looking to put $100 in a 4-5 over-under legger. Talk to me. Baby needs a new pair of shoes. Lansing. Okay. NFL's been pretty good. Don't follow my NHL picks, right? Like I said, been in and out of power all day today, and I can't afford a generator because I can't win an NHL bet. I don't know what's happening on the ice, but let's try to do some things in the NFL. Let's get after it. Last night was pretty solid, man. I was pretty happy with how the past couple weeks have gone. So let's try to carry over here. Let's start here with Miami. We have the Dolphins and the Titans. Miami here at home. Use the prop shop and the parlay calculator, both tools free over at ftmbets.com. Links inside the description of this video to get the best possible number. I'm going to stay away from this stuff. I do have Miami leading at half at -7. I think -7.5 is now over at Bet365. I'm seeing that at -115. You're always scared of the backdoor cover. But what I said earlier is this Dolphins team, I mean, especially at home, and they've beaten up on a lot of bad opponents this season as well. I do believe that they're trying to set records. They want Tyreek Hill to get his 2,000 yards. He's at 1,481. He's had 100 yards in 4 of his last 5, 146, 157 last week. He's got another game with 215, one with 157, one with 181, 163. This guy's hit the century mark 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 times this season. And what we said about the running backs. So in my own pool, I did pick Miami -13. If you had to pick tonight, I would lean with the over 13 and a half would be on that side of Miami. We don't recommend, it's not really what I like to do, recommend these high spreads for people, but the way that Miami's offense is cooking. But there's a few things that I like inside this game. So we'll start with Devon Achane at over 54.5 rushing yards and over 16.5 receiving yards for just an absolute speedster who has, when he's been on the field this year, he's just been extremely explosive. Week 3 is really when he started to get some touches. 18 for 203, 2 touchdowns. He caught 4 passes, had another 2 receiving touchdowns. So he had 4 touchdowns and really his first full NFL game. He had over 230 total yards. And that was a game where it was 70-20. Right? The Broncos defense has changed considerably. We were on them, by the way. You can't be betting the Chargers ever. But the Broncos, that was a game where they weren't really playing from behind and they were scoring some points. Against the Bills, 8 carries, 101, 2 more touchdowns, 3 catches for 19 receiving yards. Against the Giants, they were in control of that game, 11 for 151, a touchdown. Last week, we saw him return from an injury, 17 for 73, 2 more touchdowns on the ground. So he's got 7 rushing touchdowns this season in basically 4 games is what he's played. And he caught 3 passes on 4 targets for 30 receiving yards. So I'm in on the rushing yards. I like the rushing yard prop more than the receiving yard prop, but I'll rank these at the end. But I'm certainly in on this over 54.5. I think this is a number that he can get to on just a handful of carries here. And then I want to give some love to Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears, over 13.5 receiving yards, over 2.5 catches is +140. My favorite of the two is the receiving yard prop here. So Derrick Henry is good to go. But this may be a Spears game considering their 14-point dog. So Spears last week filling in for Henry when he left. He caught 4 passes on 6 targets. He had 75 yards on 16 carries. He's got 33 catches this season. But when you look into some of the numbers when it comes to the splits between Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears, I think that this is going to be a Spears game because he gets a little bit more run, more usage when they are playing from behind. For example, he has at least 4 catches in 3 of the last 4 losses that Tennessee has had. Last week, a loss, 4 grabs. You go back to a loss against the Bucks, 20-6. He had 4 grabs for 42 receiving yards. The week before in week 9, a 20-16 loss against the Steelers, he had 6 targets and 4 grabs. A loss to the Colts in week 5, he had 5 targets, 4 grabs, and 35 yards. You can go back to the start of the season. 5 of the 7 last losses for the Titans, Spears has racked up 4 grabs. So playing from behind, maybe a little bit more run here. Over 2.5 catches at +140, over 13.5 receiving yards. I forget the exact number. I think it's maybe -110 over at BetRivers. Use the prop shop again. It is your friend. Save you some time and save you some cash. And I'm going to have some fun with this ladders. Because I don't want to sit here and Miami, I'm going to sweat out Miami -14. I just can't sweat that stuff out. I would lean to the over. I'd have a hard time believing Miami won't score 30, 35, nearly 40 points. I'm sure the Titans will get a couple scores. I would say yes to that. But let's have some fun with some alternate spreads here and alternate numbers. How about Tajay Spears for 25 plus receiving yards at plus 260? He's got some big receiving yard games, 35, 48, 42. The 48 came against the Ravens on one catch. That just goes to show how explosive he can be. And then this is obviously a long shot for sure, but my goodness, 50 plus receiving yards at 14-1. That's over at Bet365. It's like a little bit of a sprinkle. I'll do the 1 unit on the 13.5 receiving yards, maybe 0.5 units on the 25 plus receiving yards, and then 0.25 on the 50 plus receiving yards. You hit one of these, you'll be able to get the baby a new pair of shoes, Lansing JP. You'll be able to get that done for the new baby in your life. So over 13.5 receiving yards, over 2.5 grabs, over 25 plus receiving yards, plus 260, 50 plus receiving yards, plus 1450 over at Bet365. We do the same thing here with Tyreek Hill. We did this last week. We had the full unit. His receiving yard props at 104. I don't know bet 104, especially a little bit juiced. I'm going to take the plus 125 and at plus 170. Again, that's over at Bet365. We did this last week. It worked out well for us. I think his receiving yard prop was in the 80s. We put 2 units on that. We put a unit on the 100. We put half a unit on the 125, and we put 0.25 on the 150, and he did it. He had 150. I mean, he's got at least 150 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games of the season, stuck on 146 in another game as well. The Titans allow the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers. We know them as a kind of like a defense that can't really stop anything through the air. They've been a little bit better this year, and the ground game hasn't been as strong as what it's been in the past. But and then I like Waddle at over 66.5 receiving yards as well. I think that one's right around minus 115. We have him for 77 receiving yards in our projections. It's been an up and down season. We haven't seen a lot. What we saw last year is just not the case. It's been a lot of Tyreek Hill, but a $114 against the Jets, and which was a tough spot. 112 against the Patriots. In the 2 of the last 3 of the last 4, actually, he's been in the 50s. So it's not consistently hitting. But I do like this spot here tonight. All right, that's really it. I have nothing else on the Titans. I don't trust Hopkins. Maybe seeing a little bit of Ramsey, Xavier Howard. I don't really know how healthy Derrick Henry is. Are they going to shy away from Derrick Henry? Just one more thing here on Henry versus Spears. If you go look at the back of the football card for Derrick Henry, like the games where he's had 17 plus carries are games that they've won. Week 2 against the Chargers, a win, 25 carries. Week 3 against the Browns, a 27-3 loss, 11 carries. Against the Bengals, a 27-3 win, 22 carries. A loss against the Colts, 13 carries. A loss against the Ravens, 12 carries. A win against the Falcons, 22 carries. A tight game against the Steelers, they lost by 4. He had 17 carries. A blowout loss to the Bucs, he had 11 carries. A blowout loss to the Jags, he had 10 carries. A win against the Carolina Panthers, he had 18. And then that loss last week to the Colts, very much alive in that entire game. It was a 1-score game basically the entire way. He had 21 carries, and he left early with, he was getting evaluated for concussion. For a concussion, he's not in protocol. So if you're painting the game script tonight, and I'm thinking the Titans lose by a couple scores here, I think Miami is going to score 30 plus, and I don't know if Tennessee can even get to 20. That means a little bit more run for Tajay Spears and a little bit less run for Derrick Henry in this game. I'm sure they'll want to establish it, but they're going to have to try to keep pace in this game. Over to the other one. Again, same time, Giants and Packers. I kind of have a lean to the Giants covering this game. I know the Packers, especially Jordan Love, has been really, really good. I needed to see it against a good defense in the Chiefs, and I saw it last week. I was like, yeah, okay, he did it against the Chargers, and he did it against the Lions. It's good. But Jordan Love has 4 games in a row here with at least 2 passing touchdowns. He's racked up 18 plus fantasy points in 4 straight games, averaging 20 during those 4. He's got a 10-2 touchdown interception ratio. A good bet to probably toss a couple more against this Giants squad. And he's averaging 19 rushing yards per game. So it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it's almost like starting with half a touchdown. He had the 39 rushing yards against the Lions in week 12. He had 37 rushing yards against the Raiders in week 5. He had 39 rushing yards against the Saints in week 3. That's like, hey, it's a free touchdown there for Mr. Jordan Love. I'm not totally into his rushing yard prop here today, but it is at actually it's a lot lower than I thought it was going to be. I kind of like it. I wasn't going to come with one, But love it over 9.5 rushing yards. I kind of dig that. 9.5 rushing yards is something he's done in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games this season. Yeah, I like that one actually quite a bit. 3 of his last 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his last 8. I wasn't even going to consider it. I just had it in my notes that, he does run a little bit and he's kind of sneaky on the ground. But that's one that I like, actually. I'm going to have to put that one in the tracker, 9.5. The only bet that I had in this game was Donatavian Wicks, excuse me. Donatavian Wicks, man, that's a tough one. I can't say that 5 times fast. Donatavian Wicks. I couldn't do it a third time. I like the over 2.5 catches and 31.5 receiving yards. No Christian Watson in this game. Man, unfortunately for Christian Watson, my goodness, a tough go for Watson, man. No Christian Watson in this game. Looks like no Aaron Jones in this game. I get it. Jaden Reed's has got some touches, and they're using like Debo. They're finding a way to get the ball in his hands, and I like Romeo Doubs to score a touchdown here. But Wicks is on my radar. And at the start of the season, when Christian Watson wasn't playing, he was living in the 50% snap range. It's not a whole lot, but he's been in the mid to low 40s over the past couple of weeks. But again, no Watson. If you just look at the last couple games from Wicks, 3+ catches in 4 straight games, and the receiving yards 43, 91, 51, 49. He's like a big play catch guy. At the start of the season, 2 grabs, 40 receiving yards, 4 grabs, 45 receiving yards, 2 grabs, 28 receiving yards. He's got a healthy 14 yards per. Actually, was that? Yeah, 14 yards per reception. That's not too shabby. It's not too shabby for the old boy. And listen to some of these longs, like these long catches. 27, 35, 32, 18, 17, 17, 10. Donut against the Lions that was earlier in the year. 18 and 32. So he is kind of right at this number, like the 31.5 receiving yards. He's cleared that on just 3 grabs, like in a game this season. So not a huge volume guy, 4+ targets, week 8, week 9, week 10, week 11, didn't play week 12, week 13, 4+ targets in all those games. As I mentioned, 3+ grabs in all of them besides the week 8 game, and the 28+ receiving yards. It's really when he came on was week 9, and we saw a little bit of him in the Chiefs game. I think we'll see a little bit of him in this game as well. So Donatavian Wicks over 2.5 grabs and over 31.5 receiving yards. I just have this feeling it's like the Beetlejuice thing. Yeah. Pretty good. I like it. Hopefully he's not hanging around doing nothing, right? Hopefully he's not hanging around doing nothing. We can get a couple catches from him tonight. I think that the Packers win, but I just have this weird feeling that we'll see a bit of a tight game. I think we'll see like a field goal game in here. Feel a little bit weird laying the 6.5 points with the Packers on the road. I get it's the Giants. I understand that, but I'm not totally in on it. In my own pool, I did pick the Giants in the spread. It did make me feel I feel a little gross, a little uncomfortable. But the past couple weeks, they won week 11, they won week 12. I know it was Washington and New England. They're coming off the bye. Tommy DeVito's a pretty interesting story here. He's keeping the boys in the game, ruining their draft pick, but keeping them in the game. I think the Packers squeak one out. I think they win by a field goal. I think it's a tight one. Let's look at the NFC playoff picture. We've seen a change up at the top of the Niners, 10-3. Just another good game from Debo. I don't know, like every time you see 68.5 receiving and rushing combined you just got to take this stuff. We had that. Should have been a 2-unit play for me. Should have pushed it a little bit more. But yeah, he's over 100 yards. Ayuk over 100 yards. He's like one of the leaders in yards per reception. I thought Darius Slay did a good job against him a couple weeks ago, but for the past few weeks, apart from that game, he's been just unbelievable. So the Niners are rolling. The Cowboys took care of the Eagles yesterday as well. Another tough one for Philadelphia. Still one more tough one at the end of their schedule. Get into the Eagles and share my thoughts in a second. But, when you turn the ball over 3 times and twice inside the red zone, you're going to lose those football games. And we saw that with Jalen Hurts, a turnover, and we saw that with Devontae Smith. Even A.J. Brown had the turnover as well. Defense still giving up some big plays. But that was the story, in my opinion, was Philadelphia turning the ball over 3 times, and Jalen Hurts is struggling with some turnovers here. The Lions, we've talked about Detroit and struggles defensively. It's not good at the moment. Jared Goff, good thing for him is no more games outside of a dome. That's the last one. A couple road games for him on the schedule, but he's going to have a roof over his head. It's not all on him, but he's had some turnovers for sure. It's the defense giving up some big plays to DJ Moore. They went for it on 4th and whatever it was midfield. And you know what? I've liked what I've seen from Justin Fields over the past couple weeks. I really think that they should stick with him. Maybe trade some of the picks, take Marv, have a Marv Fields and DJ Moore type offense. I like it. Bucks, we were on this upset. Tampa Bay squeaking it out against the Falcons. Hey, Atlanta losing another tight game, right? Somebody has to win that division 6-7. You see in the hunt, the Falcons at 6-7 and the Saints. It was ugly. It was ugly for, I guess, the first 3 quarters. They got a couple garbage time scores, but they did find a way to beat Carolina. The Eagles dropped down to the 5 seed. So if the playoffs started today, they would have a road game. I'm sure they'd be favored against the Buccaneers, and the Niners would have that bye, and the Cowboys would face the Packers. We'll see what happens to Green Bay tonight. And then Minnesota squeaking out a 3-0 victory. My goodness, there's been some very bad football this year. That was a tough game. We talked about Dobbs being a sit because we weren't sure how long the leash was. And in fact, he did get yanked in that game for Nick Mullins. It is not good. Justin Jefferson, the story, coming back and then leaving with a chest injury there. So a very ugly performance by Minnesota, but they found a way to win the football game. And how about the Rams? I mean, the Rams, was very impressed with the LA Rams this week, going into Baltimore and facing that Ravens defense, not only hanging around in that game, having a lead for a big chunk of it. Stafford, again, another really good game. Cooper Kupp, let's go. Finally, a great game from Cooper Kupp. Hopefully you made it to the playoffs with Cooper Kupp, because I understand I have him in one spot and it's been very challenging. You spent a top pick on Kupp. You could have started your draft with Kupp and T. Higgins. I have both of those guys in the league, and tell you what, didn't make playoffs. But Rams are there. Rams are hanging around, really encouraged with the game going into Baltimore and hanging with that defense that hadn't really given up a whole lot all year, especially at home. And they have the walk-off punt return touchdown to win the game 37-31. Which ended the 3-game winning streak by the Rams. Now they have Washington, they have the Saints, they have the Giants. They're very much alive in this thing. And, I think the only 2 teams that you can catch at this point of the season would be the Vikings or would be the Packers. As for the Eagles, just quickly, they need to shape up defensively. I think I would like to see them have Rashad Penny activated. I'd like to just grind and pound type thing here over the next couple weeks. It's not going to be easy against the Seahawks in Seattle. If it's Drew Lock, it'd be a little bit easier. But remember, Seattle went into Dallas and scored like 30 plus points, and the Eagles did not score a touchdown. This is the first time I think 4 or 5 years they haven't scored a touchdown. They got a defensive touchdown yesterday with Jalen Carter, who may be on the way for Defensive Rookie of the Year. But I don't want to make any excuses for Philly. But let's be honest about the schedule. Like, everybody's talking about what's wrong in Philadelphia. The defense has not been good, and that's the start of it. And Jalen Hurts is turning the ball over here over the past couple weeks. But when you play Dallas, KC, San Fran, Buffalo, actually it went Dallas into KC, then Buffalo, San Fran, Dallas. Like, come on, that's tough. That's as tough as it gets. The Eagles had the toughest schedule in the NFL. And a lot of those games were short weeks for them, where the opposing team had 10 plus days of rest. We saw it with the Niners, we saw it with the Cowboys, 90 plus snaps on defense against the Bills. They look tired. They look gassed. When I watch them play, they struggle tackling. I think they have an issue tackling. Like, they really can't tackle. That's it, man. Like, they have some issues tackling. So it's not gonna be easy, but they do hold everything. The path goes through them. What I'm trying to say, they hold their own fate, because if they win out, even with the Cowboys winning out, they win the division. Right now, the Cowboys hold the division record. But if Philly, who they wrap up with, they go to Seattle, and they got the Giants, they got Arizona and the Giants. So if they win out, they win the division. So, and I think that's important, because not only do you host a playoff game, which I do believe is very, very important for both squads, you avoid San Fran until the NFC Conference Championship game. So that's all I want to say about that. You got to get the bye. You got to get the bye. Over to the AFC. Ravens up at the top, 10-3. Dolphins here, 9-3. With a win, they would move up to that top spot there. Chiefs at 8-5. Jags at 8-5. Browns at 8-5. Steelers 7-6. Colts. Look at this. This I haven't seen. This is completely wide open. My goodness, another loss by Kansas City. I don't know what Mahomes is freaking out about at the end. Mahomes and Andy Reid, you guys, Kadarius Toney was offside, right? You admitted that he was offside. You say you can't call a play like that at the end of the game, but it's offside. So you kind of have to. So I just thought it was really first time I've seen Mahomes kind of act like that, in the huddle. He was mic'd up with Josh Allen and, he says his worst call of all time, yada, yada. Come on, man. You've had a lot of, I get it. The Chiefs have been on the wrong side of some calls over the past couple weeks. They still lead the league in drops. Kadarius Toney, another couple drops. MBS is dropping passes. Everyone's dropping passes in Kansas City. They've really missed Tyreek Hill. Honestly, that's obvious to say, but they could have brought him back. They could have made that work with him instead of dishing out the money to MVS. Their cap hits are very, very similar. Anyways, I think the Chiefs are fine, but this is going to be the first time. This is going to be the first time that the playoffs are not going to go through Arrowhead. This will be the first time that Patrick Mahomes, should he play in an AFC championship game, won't be at Arrowhead. They're going to have to go on the road, whether that's in Baltimore, whether that's against his former squad, former teammate in Tyreek Hill in Miami as well. So 8-5. They're not scoring any points. They're really not getting it done offensively, and they could be without Pacheco here for the next couple of weeks. And CEH is just not as good as Pacheco, and you can see it when you're watching the two running backs. The Jags and Trevor Lawrence. I'm shocked. He definitely did have a high ankle sprain. I want to give him props. I saw the tweets. He's never missed a game in high school. He's never missed a game. Yeah, give him credit. He hung in there and did what he could against a tough Browns defense in Cleveland. They were very much in that game the entire time. A couple turnovers on both sides. Turnovers, from Cleveland helped them get back into the game. But I want to give some props to Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco he's given Cleveland here an opportunity, right? Jags 8-5, Browns 8-5, Steelers just a brutal loss, back-to-back losses to Arizona and then the Patriots. My goodness, 7-6, Trubisky. Oh, it's a rough go. Colts 7-6. A loss there to the Bengals, and Browning, who now has an injury. But Browning, we talked about him as a super flex start. We had him as a top 15 quarterback. Wasn't high enough. It wasn't high enough. He didn't even finish out the game, and he still had 25 fantasy points. The athleticism still on display for him. A rushing touchdown. T. Higgins showed up on my bench. But yeah, the Texans at 7-6 with the loss to the Jets, and now all of a sudden they are facing adversity. The Tank Dell injury, and now Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz has been sidelined for a couple weeks. One of the surprises for me was Singletary getting as much run as he did. I thought they would lean on Pierce a little bit more. It's just a backfield you can't trust, and I suppose I'll have Singletary ranked ahead of Pierce, but I'd try to avoid this if you could. The Broncos are very much alive. We like Denver. I like Denver to get in. In fact, the two teams that I think will get in here, I think the Jags will be fine. They'll get in because the injury isn't as significant as what it looked like for Trevor Lawrence. I think we'll see the Broncos get in, and I think we'll see the Bills get in. And especially if Buffalo can beat Dallas here coming up. We'll take a look at the Week 15 schedule. But those are the two teams that I like. But this is going to be fun all the way to the end. Could you imagine if the Chiefs didn't get in? I think they're in. I haven't even looked at their schedule. What's the schedule look like for Kansas City? New England, the Raiders, and the Bengals. I mean, they're going to get in. They're going to get in. The Jags are going to get in. But like I said, I think the Broncos, we've been talking a lot about the Broncos and Russell Wilson. They're a long ways removed from allowing 70 points to Miami from week 3. This is a team, man, they almost had the walk-off win against Houston, but this is a team that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins in the last 7. They go into Detroit on Saturday night to play the Lions. I may like them in that game. They play the Patriots, and they got the Chargers there. So I kind of like the next couple of games and how they shape up for them. Buffalo's schedule is not easy by any means. It's not easy. They found a way to win a tight football game, which is something that they just haven't been able to do. They deserve much better than 7-6. This one here against Dallas, if they win this one, I like them to get in, right? They're going to have the Chargers, going to have the Patriots there. And then they wrap up against the Dolphins, which will be a fun one for sure. And then, you have the Texans. I would like the Texans to get in because it's a fun story, and CJ Stroud will keep an eye on the injury for him. Tennessee, Cleveland, Tennessee. It's not awful. It's not bad. Those two divisional games, like Tennessee will come to play, and that game against Cleveland will be a tough one for sure to squeak one out, and that'll be a big one, right? And this is a big one for the Bills, right? It's a huge one for this week as well. Let's just flip over to the schedule. This is why I think Buffalo, if they can take care of business, you see some of these teams that are going to play each other, and one of them is going to lose. Like, for example, Pittsburgh and Indianapolis. Like, one of them are going to lose, and then you'll be able to gain a game there. A little bit later on, like Texans next week, Texans and the Browns. Like, one of those teams are going to lose. You're going to find a way to get in there as well. I think the Minshew mania stuff it's been a fun ride. Steelers this week, and then the Falcons. They got a good one against the Raiders week 17. I think they finish up against the Bengals week 18. So that one could be a lot on the line as well. But some of these teams that are going to play each other, someone's going to suffer a loss, and that will be good news for Bills Mafia there. Early look at the lines and kind of mix in some waiver wire stuff here for fantasy football playoff time. I look at that top left game. Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. Like, Eckler has just not been great. And there was this daily talk about switching gears and giving guys different opportunities. 10 carries for 51 yards, at least caught a touchdown. He's still catching passes, but now you got to deal without the quarterback play. Because Herbert is not going to play in this game against the Raiders. Do they shut Eckler down? It's a possibility. I don't feel great about anybody on the Las Vegas side of things. We'll keep an eye on Josh Jacobs. Adams, you play. Should you make it? Because let's be honest, Adams and Eckler, these guys have been fantasy busts. So you may not even be in the playoffs. Minnesota and the Bengals here is a bit of a coin flip. I think, Browning is I would move him into the top 15. Like, as long as he's going to play, and you feel much better about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase than at the moment when Burrow went down. I was like, oh no, but Browning is making things happen, man. Like, he's been very, very accurate. I talked about the mobility there. It does seem like he's going to be fine and good to go this week against Minnesota. 351 and a 2 total touchdowns week 13 against the Jags, 3 total touchdowns this week against the Colts, 27 fantasy points and 25 fantasy points in his last 2 outings. Now he's got this Vikings team that I know they've been much better defensively this year than last season, but I think he could be in a tough spot here with quarterbacks. It's been a really, really rough year, and I'm going to have him ranked as a borderline QB1. Like, I'd play him over anybody in the Chargers and Raiders game, anybody in the Steelers and Colts game. I'd play him over Will Levis, obviously. I'm going to like Jordan Love against the Bucks. I'd play him over Baker. I'd play him over, obviously not rolling out any Jet. I'd play him over anybody in the Atlanta-Carolina game. I'd play him over Flacco. You're playing Fields over him. I'd play him over anybody in the New York and New Orleans game. I'd play him over any New England quarterback. I'd play him over Kyler. I'd probably play him over Kyler, man, against San Fran. I really would. They're on there twice. We got Stafford. I play Stafford against Washington over Jake Browning, but I would play him over Sam Howell. I would. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here, Jake Browning Kool-Aid. You're playing Dak, you're playing Jalen, I would play him over Trevor Lawrence against Baltimore. Absolutely. I really would. You're playing Lamar, you're playing Jalen, and then Geno. I would play him over Geno if Geno was active and ready to go there. Other waiver wire stuff. Just looking at this, I think, from a wide receiver standpoint, maybe Noah Brown picked up against the Titans. It seems risky to roll him out maybe as a flex play option there. How about over in Washington? I really like Curtis Samuel. And Curtis Samuel, we talked about the last time Washington played. We jumped all over the receiving yard props for him, like 2.5 and catches. And I think the receiving yards was in the 30s. But the last couple of weeks, got 13 grabs, 165 yards, got 17 targets. So like as maybe a flex play, as a PPR type of thing there, I don't really see too much else. Like, I don't want to take any shots on any Arizona guys. Like, I don't want to play Hollywood against San Fran. I don't want to play any Arizona players against the Niners at this moment of the season. And with them in that number 1 seed, it's like pedal to the metal type deal for them. You can play Garrett Wilson. He's going to see Jalen Ramsey, but Wilson's doing some decent things. Nice to see the good game from Drake London. Carolina's been pretty good secondary stuff, but there's no waiver wire options there. There's really nothing. Cleveland, Chicago. Amari Cooper had an okay game. Again, if you have Cooper, like you could just be done, like consolation bracket stuff. Maybe you see him on the waiver wire. His ownership's pretty high, but who knows? But he did have 14 targets from Joe Flacco. So it was really good to see that. 7 catches and 77 yards. I thought we'd see a little bit more from Elijah Moore. Now, we did get the receiving yard prop in the tracker, 42. But just the 6 targets and 3 grabs. But he does have 18 targets over the last 2 weeks with Joe Flacco. So, like, those are 2 guys that you're going to like them in the matchup against the Chicago Bears. Nothing in the Giants. It's just Olave in New Orleans. It's really just Kelsey and Rashee Rice. Again, another big game. On New England side of things, you could be in a deep league. Juju is an option. We'll see the status of Parker or DeMario. We'll see what happens. He did have 4 grabs on 6 targets for 90 receiving yards. You get the fun revenge narrative type thing, but in a full point PPR league, the deepest of deepest leagues, that's it. For the Bucks, it's Godwin has been very disappointing, man. We're just not seeing the touchdowns. Evans had a quiet game again, just some respect to the Falcons. They haven't allowed a whole lot to wide receivers. The one thing I will say with Godwin, like 11 targets is nothing to just ignore. Like 5 catches for 53. He's got 96 targets on the season. The problem is he only has 58 grabs and 1 receiving touchdown. He's got a rushing touchdown, which happened in week 13. Again, if you have Godwin, maybe you're not to the dance, but maybe you are. Maybe he's your wide receiver 3 or flex play for you. The volume is there. Talked about Noah Brown. Have some Noah Brown in your life. We'll see what happens this week with Nico Collins. Hopefully it's not a significant injury there. It's all Cortland Sutton. Jerry Jeudy actually had an opportunity for a massive, massive game against the Chargers. He ended up with 2 catches for 16 yards. I don't think that the one play may have been on him. If he just continued to run to the corner of the end zone where Russell Wilson threw a deep pass to him, he got kind of tripped up and he looked over the left side of his head and the ball was coming to the right side and he got his feet tripped up and he made it a tougher catch than what it should have been. I thought it was a pretty good ball from Russ. But the other one in the end zone where he could have got his feet in there, I thought pretty easily, and he didn't. But he spent so much time afterwards trying to orchestrate, a touchdown dance, and his feet wasn't even in. And it was so clear watching the game that he wasn't in, and he's calling everybody over to do this dance. It's like, man, it's been a rough year for Jerry Jeudy. And that's a rough look that this guy is just sitting there trying to do this touchdown dance. But, dude, you didn't even get in. So you just can't trust him against the Lions. It's a good matchup, top 10 in terms of fantasy points allowed. But it's all Cortland Sutton. And again, we talked about this. I steered you guys wrong and just in the wrong direction last year. We were a year too early on this Cortland Sutton, Russell Wilson connection. Another touchdown from Cortland Sutton. That's 10 on the season. He scored a touchdown in every single game but 1 since week 5, and every game this season but 3. Week 2, week 5. And then week 12 against the Browns, he didn't have a touchdown there, but he's just been really, really good. I don't think you can trust any Steelers at all with Trubisky. I know it's a good matchup against the Colts as well, but it's just not something that you can trust at all. You just can't do it. And Downs has been quiet. Alec Pierce was quiet after the other game that he had the week before, which was a good one. It's just all Michael Pittman. This guy is a league winner for sure. Double-digit targets in 4 straight games. Got 138 targets on the season. He's at 8+ catches in 6 straight games. He's been a money maker for us over at FTNBets.com in terms of his receptions are always at 6.5. His receiving yard prop was as high as I've seen it in a few weeks, and it was at 73. Look at these receiving yard games from 84, 107, 105, 95. He's been a monster. In fact, he has 8+ grabs in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of his 13 games this season. Woo. A fantasy league winner, a moneymaker in NFL betting, and a good draft pick by you if you do indeed have him. I don't know what to make of Minnesota. They just don't have the quarterback play at the moment. Like, is Mullins better than Joshua Dobbs? I mean, I don't think so. But what can you do if you're Minnie? You go sign Joe Flacco. You can actually rip him off the Browns contract. You want to offer him a few bucks. It'd be jokes. But if there's no Justin Jefferson, more volume should go to guys like Addison and Hawkinson. But we did see Osborne. Every time I looked up, I was seeing KJ Osborne. He had 7 targets, but he had 4 grabs and only 15 receiving yards there. So not a whole lot there to work with. A 14 parlay tonight. Dolphins over to the Packers under. Yeah, I dig that. Under. I like the under in that. I was going to say the first game. They're both at the same time. I like the under in the Packers game. Packers and under, Dolphins and over. Dig it. Tony really ruined the touchdown of the season. Man, he really did. Man, that guy's had a rough go. Actually, I would if I was a teammate, I'd be worried about him. I'd be worried about him maybe not being in the right mindset. Not because he's having all these drops. It's just the spotlight is big in Kansas City. Social media is a tough place. He's had a tough go. He had another couple drops in that game too, and he was completely lined up. Jones is now expected to play. It's conflicting reports there. I wouldn't trust Aaron Jones. I would play AJ Dillon over him if I had the choice between the two guys. I really would. We've seen this before. I get that he has the higher ceiling. He's the better running back. But Tom says he isn't expected to play. Did he just backtrack that like a few minutes ago? Because 4 hours ago, I saw him tweet that he wasn't expected. From Tom 5 hours ago, isn't expected to play tonight. Jones, who's listed as questionable, is working hard to get back. He's just not ready. So it'll be AJ Dillon show again tonight. Yeah. I wouldn't trust it, man. I wouldn't trust it at all. Plus, he hasn't been fantastic. It's like one of the couple things we got right this year is to maybe avoid him with some of the injuries that have creeped up in his game and the rushing touchdowns that just don't seem to be there for him over the past couple of years. I think the Packers should wait a little bit, right? Looks like they could win this game without him, make the playoffs, have a healthy Aaron Jones, and you got a 1-2 punch there. I want to take a look at NFL app. Could be wrong. Yeah, keep an eye, guys. If both guys play, I would play it. I know that a couple people have both running backs. I would play AJ over him. I think he's the goal line back. He's fresher at the moment. Aaron Jones is not 100%. Got an update from NFL app 13 minutes ago, said he's expected to play. That's fine. I'm not diving into any props. Like I said, I would play AJ ahead of him and maybe just shy away from AJ props altogether. I did see a couple. I was looking at the rushing attempt prop at 15.5. If he doesn't play, I'll jump on that 15.5. I would expect another 17, 18 carries from Dillon this evening if there's no Aaron Jones in the lineup tonight. 18 last week, 14 plus in 3 straight games. I would lean on that one as well, but we'll see what happens. Any thoughts on the Vikings quarterback room at this point? Yeah, I mean, the only thoughts, is that I have is it's just a bloody mess, man. Like it is just it's too bad because the defense is actually playing pretty decent. And last year it just wasn't the case. I don't know, man. I don't know what they do. Like Dobbs, he's not looking good. And this is, at the start of the season, he did some okay things. A lot with his legs, but he was actually really careless before the trade happened. Like you look at some of these games that he's had, the accuracy, like the rushing yards were there for him. Like week 1 was a disaster. Week 2, 41 rushing yards, week 3, 55, week 4, 48. Like that's why he's been okay from a fantasy standpoint. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games with 40 plus rushing yards. But he's got 10 interceptions and 13 picks. He's not accurate with the football. Good story for him to come in, in a short week, getting acquired from Minnesota, not even being able to name like probably 3 of his offensive linemen and winning a football game. I would say they go back to him. I don't think that Nick Mullins is that much of an upgrade, to be honest. But maybe they decide to turn it over to him. He did lead them on a scoring drive, which I guess is positive. I think he's more of they're both veterans at this point, but they're in a tough spot because they can't run the football. They can't run the football with Madison. They're losing guys too. Their offensive line is not 100%. They're missing dudes like all over the place, which has hurt them in terms of establishing a run. They just have not been able to do that. Sutton is this year's Jamal Williams. Yeah, my goodness. I should have took that trade from you, eh? JP in the house. He wanted T. Higgins. He wanted Cup, like it was some sort of package, not together. I was just like, you know what? If I make the playoffs, I'd rather have those two guys. But in hindsight, I'd rather have Cortland Sutton all those touchdowns. Oh yeah, drop dubs. Oh yeah, make the move. Make the move. Yeah, think about dropping dubs for Stafford. Absolutely, make the move. Again, we had him as a sit here last week because of the short leash, because there were some rumors that maybe he wouldn't start or that he would get pulled. I thought he was going to be decent against the Raiders, but yeah, I would make that swap, man, for sure. Again, just take a look at the schedule here. There's just not a lot of waiver wire stuff, but I think Jake Browning over Dobbs, like he's a guy that would play over Trevor Lawrence against Baltimore. He's a guy that would play over Kyler Murray against San Fran as long as he's good. I think it's going to be fine there. And here's a look at the playoff schedule for what's to come as well for you guys. Good luck. We are going to get out of here now, but good luck tonight. Hopefully you get what you need to get. And we'll be back a little bit later on in the week to tee up some Thursday night football. We have the 3 Saturday games. We'll still do start and sit. I understand it's crunch time. People need some W's. I will say it one more time. Have a second quarterback. Have your running backs handcuffed. Don't have these next man up type of running backs that could smash even Roschon Johnson, Tajay Spears. Tonight, if you're in a Yahoo league, pick up multiple backs just in case an injury happens. Like you want to have backup running backs on all 4 teams, just in case that even means Breida. If something to happen to Saquon, it's not going to be ideal. I don't want to start him probably, but also you don't want your league mates to have some of these guys. So if you can afford to pick them up, stash them where you can. You don't want to be running to the waiver wire in the playoffs to get a quarterback or to get a defense. Have these guys, look ahead at your schedule, have 2 defenses, have 2 quarterbacks, have 2 tight ends, have running back stashed. On the way out of here, because I do see some people popping up. This is what we have here. Devonta Chan over 54.5 rushing yards, over 16.5 receiving yards. Tajay Spears over 13.5 receiving yards, over 2.5 catches. Having some fun here with some alternates. 25 plus receiving yards, plus 260. 50 plus receiving yards at 14-1. Again, what I said earlier. This could be a Tajay Spears game. If you look at the back of the game log for Derrick Henry in games where they are blown out, losing, he's not getting a lot of run. In games where they're in it and it's a 1-score game and they're winning, he is getting run. At least 4 catches in 3 of the last 4 losses. This is Spears, that is, 3 of the last 4 losses by the Titans, and 5 of the last 7, he's had at least 4 grabs, and he's pretty explosive with that ball in his hands. We're doing an alternate here with Tyreek Hill at plus 125 receiving yards, at plus 170 over at Bet365. They're running up the score in Miami. They want to set these records. Waddle over 66.5 receiving yards. And then we got Donatavian Wicks there at over 2.5 catches and 31.5 receiving yards, 3+ grabs in 4 straight games, 43 yards, 91, 51, and 49. Those are the last 3 for him. Earlier in the year, 2 for 44 for 45, 2 for 28. He's playing 50% of the snaps to start the season. With Watson out, he probably gets back into that 50% of the snap type range for him tonight. And he's been a high, yards per catch guy. So we could get this on 2 grabs, but hopefully we get 3 from him tonight. All right, I'm out of here. Sally dropped Howell for dubs. Hoping to, yeah, that's tough, man. Sometimes you got to live in the moment. Howell on the waivers or the bye week. I get it. But I would consider yourself pretty lucky if you get Stafford. Stafford the rest of the way just had a great game against Baltimore, Washington, New Orleans, and the Giants. I'd be pretty happy. You should be pretty happy if you can get Stafford. It wouldn't be the end of the world there for you. So go get yourself Stafford. Maybe get a second quarterback there too, in case anything does happen to you. All right, we're out here, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Good luck tonight. Oh wait, I do have some couple hockey picks. I've been super cold on the ice, but I did say I would give a couple. Let's take a look at the tracker. There's 4 games on the ice. I wrote the NHL DFS article. I like the Arizona and Buffalo game. I really like Jeff Skinner tonight. Jeff Skinner's got like 3+ shots in 8+ games, and he's got a couple there with 7. So I took Skinner at over 3.5 shots at minus 118. I like Clayton Keller inside that same game at over 2.5 shots. I got Jason Zucker for a point at plus 135. He's on that top line with Nick Schmaltz and with Clayton Keller. Got some Bet365 stuff. Keller and Schmaltz for a point at plus 110. I got Skinner and Thompson for a point at plus 110. I'm on the Leafs tonight at minus 120. I like Valeri Nichushkin at over 2.5 shots. And I got the Stars in 60 to win against Detroit without Dylan Larkin, without JT Compher, without their top two centers. So I do like Dallas at home tonight. I've been ice cold. This is the coldest streak I've ever had in the NHL, and it has not been good. It has not been good. So maybe you want to fade. Maybe we'll start to turn a corner. It's I can't get two sports going at once. You know, NFL's bad, NHL's rolling. NFL's been great the past 3 weeks. NHL's been these past 2 weeks have been the worst 2 weeks I've had. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty stressful. I'm not getting any sleep at night. I hate giving you guys losers. It's not been good, man. It's been a brutal couple weeks. I win with 16.3 PPR points, and I could play a Chan or Barkley. Wow, who do you feel more confident about? I think you got to play a Chan. Yeah, I think you do. It's crazy, man. Like when you get into a point of the season, you'd never think that you would say something like that, right? You'd never consider a Chan over Saquon and what Saquon and the upside that he brings to the table. But I would play a Chan, man, at 16.3. Like what this guy has done in full games. I know you know this, but this isn't a half point setting. 23, 22, 25, 50. We have him as a top 5 back in our projections. And I didn't have him as a top 5 back. I have him and Mostert a lot closer than other people, probably low end RB1. We have him for 15 points and a half point setting. That is RB6. We have Barkley as 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 at 14. But I would play a Chan, man. 14 and a half point favorites here. He can bust one for you. Probably going to score a touchdown. Guy's got like already multiple games with multiple touchdowns. Basically played 5 games. He's basically played 5 games this year. Week 3, 4, 5. Basically played 4 games because week 1 he had 1 carry. Week 11 he had 1 carry and he left with a knee injury. Week 12 he didn't play, right? Or week 1 he left with the injury. Week 12. Anyways, one of those games he didn't play, or 2 of them he was certainly limited in both because he came back early and then he didn't play. And I think that he just missed week 12 against the Jets. Anyways, he's played 4 games. He's basically played 4 full games in the NFL, and he has 7 rushing touchdowns, 9 total, 100 receiving yards, and 534 rushing yards. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, he's good. He's fast. He can hit a hole. It's the play calling. Plus they're 14-point favorites. And what they showed us last week is they want to run up the score and beat up on a couple teams. Good luck. Hopefully you guys get what you need to get. We'll be back on Wednesday. Cheers.